Slips. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
I think you already know, but this is the second hour of David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com, on the #1 listener supported talk radio net. So just push the donate button or subscribe to the archives. But they're currently free, so you don't need a subscription. But you could subscribe to Patreon instead, and just a small donation. But you know what we do? We suggest you get merchandise. Get that from the station's website. Little click here and click there, and then suddenly you've got, you know, t-shirts, mugs, or anything you like. It's really cool. There are a million ways, not say that's over exaggerating. There is a huge number of ways you can pay. You can actually send a check. You know, you can do a money order. You might still be able to post cash, but it's not recommended, through the mail. There is a Patreon account. You can direct deposit money. You can do pretty much anything you like to support it. But, you know, the thing that you might better do, which benefits both parties, it's you and the station, and that is to get yourself some merch. The art is done by Ahmad Pater. Awesome stuff. Looks great. And, you know, if you remember the olden days when you'd be at work and have a mug that says, you know, I'm the best dad, or, you know, my kids love me, or, you know, when coffee is down to this level, fill it up again. I made for Shiny Side Out, we got our own March tour, and one of those is the office bingo. And I did this for the COVID era, where we're all working from home on Teams or, you know, Zoom or what have you. And the meeting, every single meeting has some person who's talking but they're muted. Every single meeting has someone who's joined, but their microphone doesn't work or their headphones don't work. And you end up having a seance. Look, if you can hear us, give us a sign. And, you know, I feel like everyone's holding hands in a big circle, having a seance with a Ouija board, trying to get someone in. And so I've got a whole bunch of sayings for the office meeting bingo on the mug, which can assist you. And if you haven't heard one, say it. It's always a lot of fun. Anyway, so that's Shiny Side Out. We've got our own Patreon as well, like the station, but it's our own one. It's cool, right? We would take callers, but I'm on my own, and I really want to get through the show notes today, and I won't take too much more time. Got 1 minute left. So we thank Nighthawk very much. May he forever rest in peace and always be in our hearts and memories. He brought this station. Sorry, he created this station. It was very young when I joined, and this is my 11th year. It's 10 plus 2 months, I think, or thereabouts. 10 years and 2 months, 11th year. And yeah, it's a tremendous platform. When I've got a chance, because, you know, I live in Australia and it's crazy, the time difference, and I don't get to hear my show very often. I heard one of my bumpers the other day, and I heard some old favorites voices doing the bumpers for other shows. I got to catch a couple of the shows, but you know what you do, you jump in the archives, and you can just download, you know, someone's entire, you know, a couple of years worth of shows and listen to those. And you can, you know, binge them, because that's what we do now, right? We binge. I've been watching the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and they've only released 2 episodes every week for the last 4 weeks, and there is only one more season they're going to film, and then I think that's it for that series. But it's a tremendous show. I love it. But, you know, don't remember when I was growing up, you didn't have any way to record it, and then videos came out. But before then, you were hung out and shut down your life to sit in front of the TV for the time that it was being broadcast. That doesn't happen anymore. We do very, very shared family events like that anymore. Everyone's in their own room with their own electronic devices, watching their own YouTubes and their or TikToks or whatever they're doing, and chatting to their friends. Some of that unified family experience doesn't exist. I remember watching. This isn't Dave's memory lane, but watching all of the old series, some of them first views, and then all the reruns as well, with my family. And that was, I think, if I didn't have that, it was just me on my own as an only kid, and I really cherished that part of my life, being able to share that time with my parents. Now my mum's passed now, and I only get to see my father at least a minimum of once a year, because he lives 700 kilometers or 500 miles or thereabouts away from me, and it's actually not a bad drive now. It's almost freeway all the way, but life doesn't always go the way you want it to with commitments. So I feel really sorry that I can't spend even more time with my dad. His viewpoint is an extraordinary one, and which if I didn't have that anymore, I certainly miss it. So cherish what you have when you've got it, because you don't know when it's going to be gone. Right? Anyway, this is show number 522. This is the second hour of this, and the first hour is news. If you've only just joined us, the second hour is usually a show arc or a show topic that might go for a number of shows. This is Ancient Aliens and part 5 in the series. On YouTube, in our archives in YouTube, we have those split into 2 separate shows, so you don't have to listen to the news that's now aged. It's topical news for the week, but if we've made a prediction, we get a timestamp, we can go back to that and say that was the published date, and look, we were right. And that happens quite often, especially with my friends when I'm trying to back up a story. And they go, oh, really, Ukraine or the fuel or whatever it is. Yeah, you never said that. I go, actually, I did. And I said it on air, and I was on radio, and there it is. So, shush it. As Will Ferrell will say. All right, so Vimanas is where I'm going to start today. Now, this has been expanded out since last week. So we only gave a very short description of it last week, but I'm going to see if I can get through as much as I can today. So bear with me. I have had coffee. You might be able to tell. I am on my own. Meki couldn't make it today. He had some family commitments, and if he makes it home near the end of the show, he said he might join. Otherwise, he'll just leave me to it, and he'll be here next week. All right. Now, to all those people in the chat room, hello to you all. And I hope you're liking the show so far. Anyway, on to Vimanas. Many Sanskrit stories which were written in India more than 2 millennia ago, 2,000 years ago, contain information about mythical flying machines called Vimanas. Comparing the similarities between descriptions of Vimanas and people who have observed UFOs, ancient alien theorists have suggested that India was visited in the past by astronauts from other planets. What is a Vimana? A Vimana are mythological flying palaces or chariots described in Hindu text and Sanskrit epics. The Pushpaka Vimana of Ravana, who took it from Kubera, Rama, returned it to Kubera, is the most quoted example of a Vimana. Vimanas are also mentioned in Jain, Jain, texts. I thought I aligned a lot more with the Jain methodologies, I suppose, rather than religious text or religion, because of my beliefs that it aligned more than any other religion in the world. And I think they're the only ones that didn't go to war, but I'd like to be corrected by Meki. I wish my adjudicator was here. So what's the etymology of Vimanas? Sculpture of the Pushpaka Vimana as a temple flying in the sky. The Sanskrit word for Vimana, which I cannot pronounce and is is literally, and I'm going to put that, I'm going to do a little screenshot here. Middle screen, that little block of text, and I'm going to put it back to the show topic again. Literally means measuring out, traversing, or having been measured out. Monia Williams defines Vimana as a car or a chariot of the gods, any self-moving aerial car, sometimes serving as a seat or throne, sometimes self-moving and carrying its occupant through the air. Other descriptions make the Vimana more like a house or palace, and one kind is said to be 7 stories high, and quotes the Pushpaka Vimana of Ravana as an example. It may denote any car or vehicle, especially a bier, as B-I-E-R, or a ship, as well as a palace of an emperor, especially with 7 stories. In some Indian languages like Tamil, Malayan, and Telugu, and Hindi, Vimana or Vimanam means aircraft. For example, in the town name Vimanapura, a suburb of Bangalore, the Vimanam Nagar, a town in Pune, P-U-N-E. In another context, Vimana is a feature in Hindu temple architecture. Now, here's one of the sources, the Vedas. The predecessors of the flying Vimanas of the Sanskrit epics are the flying chariots employed by various gods in the Vedas. That's the Vedic text. The sun, see sun chariot, and Indra, and several other Vedic deities are transported by flying wheeled chariots pulled by animals, usually horses. The Rig Veda versus RV, that's Rig Veda 1, 164 164, I think that's maybe pages 47 to 48, also known as the riddle hymn, were taken as evidence for a spacecraft by Indian philosopher and social leader Dayananda Saraswati, who believed in the infallible authority of the Vedas. 47. Oh, I can't read that. It's not even English. Oh, there's a translation. Thank goodness for me. All right, so middle screen again. Just going to show it. So it says, I have to say my Sanskrit's not very good, but needless to say, it says, along the dark course, tawny, well-feathered birds, clothing themselves in the waters, fly up towards heaven. These have returned here as rain from the seat of truth, as heaven. Only then is the earth moistened with ghee, G-H-E-E. 48. The chariot wheel of the sun is 1. Its wheel segments are 12. Its wheel naves are 3. Who understands this? They, the days, that wander on and on are fitted together on that, like 300 pegs, like 60 more. Translator was Stephanie W. Jamison and Joel B. Brereton. Dayananda Saraswati, Sarasvati, I'm sure that is pronounced, interpreted these to mean jumping into space speedily with a craft using fire and water, containing 12 stamgars or pillars, 1 wheel, 3 machines, 300 pivots, and 60 instruments. Others may interpret it merely as a flowery way of saying the year is made of 12 months or 3 seasons, or about 360 days. Hindu epics, maybe they're reading too much into it. The Ramayana, in the Ramayana, the Pushpaka or flowery Vimana of Ravana is described as follows. The Pushpaka Vimana that resembles the sun and belongs to my brother was brought by the powerful Ravana, that aerial and excellent Vimana going everywhere it will, that chariot resembling a bright cloud in the sky, and the king, Rama, got in, and the excellent chariot, at the command of the Righira, rose up into the higher atmosphere. Well, that's not a bird, is it? People got in it. And the colour and cloud, silverish colour, resembling a bright cloud in the sky. Wow. Sun, imagine if you were trying to describe the flames coming out the bottom of a rocket. How would you describe that if you couldn't say the words rocket? Or propulsion, because you didn't have a push-pull, equal and opposite effect in your vocabulary. Okay, back to the text. It is the first flying Vimana mentioned in existing Hindu texts. As distinct from the gods' flying horse-drawn chariots, Pushpaka was originally made by Vishwakarma for Brahma, the Hindu god of creation. Later, Brahma gave it to Kubera, the god of wealth, but it was later stolen, along with Lanka, by his half-brother King Ravana. Now, in Jain literature, Vimana Vasan, that is, dweller in Vimana, is a class of deities who serve the, good grief, Tirthamkara Mahavira. These Vaminika deities dwell in the Urdhva Loka heavens, according to the Kalpa Sutra of Bhadra Bahu. The 24th Tirthamkara Mahavira himself emerged from the great Vimana Pushpatara, whereas the 22nd emerged from the great Vimana Aparjuta. So the Tirthamkaras Abhinandana, the 4th, and Sumati Natha, the 5th, both travelled through the sky in the Jayanta Vimana, namely the great Vimana Sava Artha Siddhi, which was owned by the Jayanta deities, whereas the Tirthamkara Dharma Natha, that is the 15th, travelled through the sky in the Vijaya Vimana. A Vimana may be seen in a dream, such as the Nalini Gulma. Good grief. I'm starting to get the hang of this. All right. Ashoka mentions Viman, or an aerial chariot, as part of the festivities or procession which were organized during his reign. In times past, for many hundreds of years, there had been promoted the killing of animals and the hurting of living beings, discourtesy to relatives, discourtesy to Shramanas and Brahmanas. But now, in consequence of the practice of morality on the part of the king, the sound of drums has become the sound of morality, showing the people representations of aerial chariots, elephants, masses of fire, and Cujo the dog, and other divine figures. Sounds like my family's return home. Okay, so Vaimanika Shastra. The Vaimanika Shastra is an early 20th century Sanskrit text on aeronautics obtained allegedly by mental channeling about the construction of Vimanas, the chariots of the gods, in brackets. The existence of the text was revealed in 1952 by J.R. Joyce-Yer, according to whom it was written by one Pandit Sabaria Shastri, who dictated it in 1918, anywhere between 1918 and 1923. A Hindi translation was published in 1959. Sanskrit text with an English translation in 1973. It has 3,000 shlokas in 8 chapters. Sabaria Shastri allegedly stated that the content was dictated to him by Maharishi Bharadvaja. A study by Aeronautical and Mechanical Engineering at Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore in 1974 concluded that the aircraft described in the text were poor concoctions, and the author showed a complete lack of understanding of aeronautics. Now we come to the Ayavashi. So Pushpak Vimana, meaning an aeroplane with flowers, is a mythical aeroplane found in the Ayavashi mythology. Akilatirutu Manai, the religious book, says that the Pushpak Vimana was sent to carry Aya Vaikundar to Vaikundam. A similar reference is found in regards to Saint Tukaram, Maharashtra, India. Lord Vishnu was so impressed by the devotion and singing of Saint Tukaram that when his time came, a Pushpak Viman, a heavenly aircraft shaped as an eagle, came to take him to heaven. Though it is believed that every other human being can go to heaven without body, Saint Tukaram went to heaven with body. Sediha Shwaga Prapti. Now, a deeper perspective. I'm just going to show an image of this on the screen. Vimana, the ancient Indian aerospace craft, time for indigenous. Oh, I can't even read that word. My poor brain. Indigenistation. All right. Achieving self-reliance in defence manufacturing is one of the key national objectives of India today. The focus has been on reducing dependency on defence imports and indigenisation of the items presently being imported. A key area of action is the aerospace, which is not only cost-intensive but also sees early obsolescence. The Germans and Chinese and many others have been avid fans of India's ancient past and the vast knowledge that is so well documented in the ancient manuscripts. Lot more information may be residing in millions of still unread documents held in thousands of places of different Indian religions and sects. SECTS. Some of them may be a gold mine of information that may propel India back to the proposition or the position of glory it once held. Vimana is just one such story. Now, the early mathematical concepts. India is known to have given to the world most major concepts of mathematics, some as far back as 1200 BC. Aryabhata, Brahmagupta, and Bhaskara were famous mathematicians, which I butchered their names unfortunately, of the period between 400 to 1200 AD. The concept of zero, the decimal system, negative numbers, arithmetic, and algebra were Indian contributions. trigonometric functions, sine and cosine, could be tangent as well, were added by ancient Indians. Even practical mathematics, covering measures of length, proportions, ratios, weights, geometric shapes, were also evolved. Large numbers from 100 to a trillion were in use in Vedic period. For construction, those days, Pythagorean theorem and geometric area equivalents were used, although this was before Pythagoras. India is estimated to have about 30 million manuscripts dating back to 700 BC. The knowledge of mathematics was germane to scientific research. I'm showing you an image of a cross section of a Vimana, and it's the Shakuna Vimana described in the text might be defined as a cross between a modern plane and a rocket. Image source is it's from WordPress, so it's not an official document, but it's been placed there. I can see there's a tail and something in the front. Looks like a large kind of chimney thing in the middle. Don't know what that does. All right, so what does it say? The ancient references. The Sanskrit word Vimana, meaning a part that has been measured and set aside, first appeared in Vedas with several meanings ranging from temple or palace to mythological flying machine. References to these flying machines were common in ancient Indian text, even describing their use in warfare and being able to fly within the Earth's atmosphere. The other thing were birds and little rocks that you threw up in the air, came down again. Vimanas were also said to be able to travel into space underwater as well. The sun, got a mosquito. Oh, I hate mosquitoes. The sun and Indra are several other Vedic deities, were transported by flying wheeled chariots pulled by animals, usually horses, but others like the Agnihotra Vimana, Agni meaning fire, with 2 engines, and the Gaia Vimana, the elephant powered, were known at the time. The Rig Veda also talks of mechanical birds. Later texts around 500 BC talk of the self-moving aerial car without animals. In some modern Indian languages, the word Vimana means aircraft. Oh, here's a good picture. There's people on the ground and there's these kind of boat-like things floating in the sky. Very interesting. Okay, so the Pushpaka Vimana depicts 3 times, twice flying in the sky and once landed on the ground. Image source from Wikipedia. As per Ramayana Pushpaka, the flowery chariot, this was originally made by Vishwakarma for Brahma, the Hindu god of creation. Brahma gifted it to Kubera, the god of wealth, but was stolen along with Lanka by his half-brother, the demon king Ravana. It reportedly resembled the sun and could go everywhere at will. Wow, everywhere. There are mentions of Lord Rama using it, and under the command of Rigira, captain, the chariot reportedly rose up into the higher atmosphere. The celestial self-propelled car was large, had 2 stories, and many chambers with windows, and was draped with flags and banners. Ravana taking sight in the flying chariot and being attacked by the mythical bird. Wow. Kind of looks like a dragon, like a feathered dragon. So not only did it have wings, it had arms at the front as well. Goodness me. By the time the Mahabharata, 400 BC, these flying chariots had grown in size, but they were never lost but they never lost the large wheels. The Mahabharata mentions the genius Yavanas as creator, chief designer of a finite dimensioned Vimana with 4 solid wheels owned by Asura Maya. Jain literature talks of the various Tirthamkaras flying different types of flying machines, starting from the 4th Tirthamkara traveling in Jayantavimara to the very famous 24th Tirthamkara Mahavira emerging out of a great Vimana Pushpa Attara or Uttara. Now, recent studies of this phenomena. Mr. 𝐫𝐞𝐯𝐥𝐮𝐭𝐢𝐨, former director of the International Academy of Sanskrit, research in Mysore, claimed that the Academy had collected manuscripts that were compiled by ancient rishis thousands of years ago. One manuscript dealt with aeronautics, construction of various types of aircraft for civil aviation and for warfare, designs and drawing of a helicopter-type cargo plane specially meant for carrying combustibles and ammunition, and a double and triple or treble-decked passenger aircraft carrying 400 to 500 persons were reportedly recorded. And here's some more images for those people on YouTube. That's, you just pause it and zoom in if you can. All right, so the Vaimanika Shastra, translated in early 20th century, covers definitions of aeroplane, pilot, aerial routes, and planes are described in great detail. In 1991, a book by David Hatcher Childress, and we really want DHC to come on the show, Vimana aircraft of ancient India and Atlantis, covered the secrets of constructing aeroplanes that will not break, will not catch fire, and cannot be destroyed. Also, secret of making planes motionless, that is hovering, of making them invisible, that's stealth, the secret of retrieving photographs of the interior of enemy planes, that's intelligence, the secret of ascertaining the direction of enemy planes' approach, that's using radar, the secret of making persons in enemy planes lose consciousness, and the secret of destroying enemy planes. My goodness me. That sounds like modern warfare. Imagine if you could make someone lose consciousness in your enemy plane. Don't have to kill them. Just make them unconscious. That'll do it. I'm sure there's a wavelength you can beam at someone that makes them go to sleep. The propulsion of the Vimanas, according to Kanji-Lal, 1985, was by mercury vortex engines, apparently a concept similar to electric propulsion. Childress also finds evidence for the mercury vortex engine in the Samarangana Sutrahara, an 11th century treatise on architecture. Now, the mercury vortex was also rumoured to have been in the Nazi belt, also causing similar effect. There's some more images, screen captures, and building alike the things they saw in the sky. Vimanas and the temple designs image source, Pinterest. Texts say Vimanas are powered by some jet engines. This seems to be true from the description of the flight behavior. Elephants ran away in panic. Grass was thrown out because there was a lot of pressure from behind those Vimanas. The Vaimanika Shastra refers to metals used in these aircrafts. There is a mention of electricity and power sources, of pilots and their flying clothing, about the food that they ate. It talks even about the weapons that are kept on these airships. The flight manuals of the Vimanas are quite similar to the flight manuals you'll find in modern civil and military aircraft. Actually, you open up, this is my op-ed, you open up the document, it says, congratulations on your purchase of a Vimana. And then there's a little index. To turn it on, press this button. It suggests that Vimanas were powered by several gyroscopes placed inside a sealed liquid mercury vortex. One of the texts talks about Mercury rotating and driving some sort of a powerful propeller or fan. I'm just going to show another image. Pardon me. There are references to flying machines in the temple carvings and in the ancient writings. Most ancient Sanskrit manuscripts have still to be translated into English. It is claimed that a few years ago, the Chinese discovered some Sanskrit documents in Lhasa, Tibet, and sent them to be translated. Dr. Ruth Rayner, who undertook the exercise, said recently that the documents contain directions for building interstellar spaceships. The method of propulsion, she said, was anti-gravitational, a system similar to that of 𝐫𝐞𝐯, the unknown power of man's ego, a centrifugal force strong enough to counter gravitational pull. Hindu yogis for long have maintained 𝐫𝐞𝐯 enables a person to levitate. Dr. Rayner said that on board these machines, which were called astras, the ancient Indians, could have sent a detachment of men onto any planet. Now, I just pause here for a sec. I'm reminded of that, the Aztec wall carving that depicts a person at the bottom, sitting in a chair with its feet on pedals, hands clasping levers, and looking into what looks like, like a periscope, and flames coming out the back. Very reminiscent of the Vimana. Like one had landed there and they had to document it. You know what I mean? So, linkages to modern avatars. So, Vimanas were kept in a Vimana griha, a kind of hangar, and were sometimes said to be propelled by a yellowish white liquid, which sounds more like gasoline. Perhaps Vimanas had a number of different propulsion sources, including combustion engines and even pulse jet engines. It is interesting to note that when Alexander invaded India in 300 BC, his historians chronicled that at one point they were attacked by fiery flying shields that dived at his army and frightened the cavalry. Could it be true that they had this technology as recent as then? Good grief. So there's a picture here. I'm going to share that as well. That's 5,000-year-old flying machine image found by American soldiers in Afghan cave. Wow. That looks like electricity to me as well. The Nazis developed the first recent pulse jet engines for their V1 and V2 rockets. It says V8 rockets, but no. Hitler and the Nazi staff were greatly interested in ancient India and Tibet and sent regular expeditions to both these places in the 30s to gather evidence. In fact, it wasn't just to India and Tibet, it was worldwide looking for tech, which it's believed that they did find it. And certainly their experiments on the Mercury vortex were quite solid. Interestingly, Soviet scientists discovered old instruments used in navigating cosmic vehicles in caves in Turkestan and the Gobi Desert. Another image. Ancient Indian Vimana. Image source, aloneworld.in. Of course, they're not photographs. As per John Burroughs, Sanskrit texts have references to gods who fought battles in the sky using Vimanas equipped with weapons as deadly as in current times. dangerous dart operated using a circular reflector, which, when switched on, it produced a shaft of light which, when focused on any target, immediately consumed it with its power. That sounds like a laser weapon. There are references of highly maneuverable and powerful Vimanas launching single projectiles charged with all the power of the universe against cities, resulting in huge columns of smoke and fire equivalent to tens of thousands of suns. This iron thunderbolt, gigantic messenger of death, what a great name, reportedly reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and the Andhakars. These kinds of records are not isolated and can be cross-correlated with similar reports in other ancient civilizations. Were these nuclear weapons? Well, there is proof that the sand was turned to glass in one particular area, and the people they were able to exhume when digging down at that same layer were in the same kind of contorted, hollowed out spaces that you would find in what's the volcano that went off and all the people were burned to death in a pyroclastic flow? Anyway, not Machu Picchu. Far out. I wish my poor brain would work it out. Okay, Vimana of Cenna-Kesava Temple. Many Western researchers studying UFOs tend to overlook possible origin in ancient India. Even many modern-day Indians did not take the text very seriously, but woke up when the Chinese announced that they were studying this data for their own space program. From the manuscripts, it is not clear if interplanetary travel was ever made, but there is a mention of a planned trip to the moon. However, the Ramayana does have a highly detailed story of a trip to the moon in a Vimana, including details of a battle on the moon with Aspen, the Atlantean airship. Good. Wow. The Vimana Parva, or Mahabharata, and this is this was what was found, I think, in South America. It's just missing a glass dome, but it looks like a carving to resemble what looks like a space pod of some kind. If you added wings to it, it'd be a plane, jet plane. The Samara Sutradhara is a scientific treatise dealing with every possible angle of air travel in Vimana or civil aviation. There are 230 stanzas dealing with the construction, takeoff, cruising for thousands of miles, normal and forced landings, and even possible bird strikes. It dealt with aircraft operations, including information on the navigation, precautions for long flights, protection of airships from storms and lightning, and changeover to solar energy for crews. Wow, that's pretty cool. More recently, Vimanas have appeared in books, films, internet, and video games. Interstellar propulsion system called Vimana Drive is used in the space exploration game Noctis. Producer Etnica released film Vimana in 1997 includes references to UFOs and alien life forms. Michael Scott, the Irish author, wrote The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel, a fantasy series that included flying Vimanas. And when you look at the comparison in the shape and the orientation of the Vimanas to modern space vessels, there is a very similar comparison that could be made. Just understanding that what we're flying is a lot smaller, a little bit more personal. But even in the religious painting, where there's two people flying in individual single-man ships across the sky in what could be a chase or a race or a war. Yeah, I mean, it's clearly depicted. There was something going on back then. NASA, I would say, never a straight answer or need another 7 astronauts, but their official title is National Aeronautical and Space Administration, is trying to create an ion engine. Well, they're not trying to create it, they have made it, that uses a stream of high-velocity electrified particles. Interestingly, the aircraft engines being developed for future use by NASA, by some strange coincidence, also use mercury bombardment units powered by solar cells. The world continues to crave for ancient Indian knowledge. Can India one day regain its lost glory and knowledge as the leader of science and technology? Probably not. As Indian PM Narendra Modi's pushes indigenization of defense production, I think that's bringing that production in-house, India needs to remember that it was a great aerospace power. All right, so this is the tinfoil hat zone. A 5,000-year-old ancient Indian Vimana found in Afghanistan cave. 8 American soldiers stuck in time well disappeared in attempt to remove it. I remember seeing this story. Don't know how, I suppose a tinfoil hat, so take it however you wish. A 5,000-year-old Vimana, an aerial vehicle from ancient India, was discovered in a cave in Afghanistan that has caused the disappearance of at least 8 American soldiers stuck in a time well, like frozen in stasis, in an attempt to extract it from the cave. The discovery caused a flurry of high-level visits to the area by some powerful leaders of the Western world. It was a very interesting visit from world leaders and royalty to the South Pole. I forget the year, but it, and I think that was when, was it Cheney or someone had a heart attack when they were there and had to get taken home medically? Extraordinary. And that was never quite explained, why all those people would suddenly just get invites to go and see something, whatever it was. But in Google Earth, you can actually see a place that's a couple of miles long, has concentric, identical planes. Planes are wrong. It has like fins across the top, and they're all east-west, while the length of it is north-south. So they're all smaller than the length, and they're all equidistant along it. It is not a rock outcrop, and it was exposed by the melting. And there was a bunch of, like someone had seen it by the air, then they'd landed, they formed like a little air base. There, lots of other people arrived, and in 1 year when the photograph was taken, there's tracks everywhere, and it looks like they'd tried to excavate a little to find out more about it, and then it's kind of covered back up again because of snow drifts. So interesting that we should, and that's around about the same time everyone's invited down. Most presumably, it's well ancient, or maybe it's a crashed ship from the wars in our solar system or something. Don't know. And will we ever get invited to go and see it? Unlikely. All right. Great leaders' suspicious visit to Afghanistan. A whole story around this. 2 paragraphs. In the summer of 2012, the leaders of the most important Occidental countries made consecutive visits that were considered suspicious in Afghanistan at short intervals, one from another within week. Each of them took turns, like within a week. Barack Obama, David Cameron, Nicolas Sarkozy, which was the then president of France, and Angela Merkel. At the time, Nicolas Sarkozy was already in India when suddenly he left that country going to Afghanistan. The following question was naturally asked: why all this suspicious rush of all great world's political personalities towards Afghanistan. The leak of information, even if partial, coming from the US Air Force seemed to have offered the answer. An ancient flying machine, approximately 5,000 years old, so we know the rest of that. All right. What about 8 American soldiers suddenly disappeared? That's once again the same story where they got stuck in a time well. I think time well's probably wrong. They fell into a field in which now they're stuck in stasis and can't be removed. If they've disappeared, maybe they went into the ship, or maybe they were rescued by the people who run that device. Maybe it is truly a time well. Maybe it hasn't aged since it was trapped. Maybe it got trapped in a huge flood. And maybe people just became disorientated, or they hit their head and perished in there or something. I don't know. Turned on this device and then it's got a shield around it. That'd be pretty cool. Maybe they just live for such a long time that time well is the way that they stay rejuvenated. So what is a time well? To the time well encasing the Vimana, it appears to be an electromagnetic radiation gravity field first postulated by Albert Einstein as the unified field theory and long rumoured to be behind the infamous American World War II experiment in teleportation called the Philadelphia experiment that, in 1943, like the events occurring in Afghanistan today, likewise caused the sudden disappearance of US soldiers, and that was the USS Eldridge. There are also ample references, followed by explanations, detailed construction designs, and energetic solutions in many other Hindu writings, among which the most important Vaimanika Shastra, where it is stated that Hindu Vimanas had the capacity to fly with great speed through the terrestrial atmosphere, underwater, through the oceans, and also in outer space. While researching the Vedas, ancient texts, including around 50 episodes of the Mahabharata, Sir Desmond Leslie concluded that the ancient chariot or flying machines called Vimanas were actually anti-gravitic vehicles, and some of the weapons, the Brahma weapon, could well have been nuclear bombs or death rays. Descriptions in the Vedas of the resulting carnage were reminiscent of Hiroshima. It is claimed that a few years ago the Chinese discovered some Sanskrit documents in Lhasa, Tibet, and sent them to the University of, in China to be translated. Dr. Ruth Rayner of the university said recently that the documents contain directions for building interstellar spaceships. Oh, I don't think I can give it 3 minutes. I'm going to back it up and pause it there. Show 523, which is coming up next week. What are your thoughts out there? What do you think about the possibility that we've had, multiple like sine wave curves of high technology, then it all gets wiped out or disappears, or the people die, or they've left and gone somewhere else, and then we have to all start again. Great cataclysms that maybe reset us again, and we get to this high tech like we've got now, but we don't have anti-gravitic that we know about. If the US has been researching it, please pull it out now and stop all the world's wars and maintain peace. Maybe wouldn't that be good? Yeah. If you had that tech, you'd sit on it, right? When would you choose to reveal it? Like decoding the Enigma machine. They had decoded it already, and we're just watching all the text go by, listening in. But if they'd acted on any of it, it would have given away that they knew about it. So at what point do you declare it? If you're sitting on it, it's got to be pretty good. Because you know what? Whoever you stop with that kind of tech is going to want it. They're going to want it so bad that you could be the next target. Even with that tech, do you think it's possible that you could possibly... Impossible. Do you think it's possible that you could defend yourself with it sufficiently and not get wiped out, or maintain, good world relations? Would you have to change your stance so that you became the world peace monger and, eliminated anyone? Just flick them off into space using anti-gravity weapons. Oh, you're mean. Off to the sun you go. if you filtered out people through their hatred and eliminated them, would the other people just be in fear? That would be what you want. Would the other people on the planet be happy about that? I think it would all. I picked D, all the above. Yeah, you are a winner, Mace. Yes, I know. I've got less than a minute. Thank you very much. This has been Shiny Side Out with David Mackey in Mackey's absence. Stay tuned for Jer Bear's awesome After Hours show. And he does such a great job. He's been here for longer than me. And take care, and until next week, watch the skies. Stay informed. Oh, and stock up on food. Let me tell you, I don't want to do that. See you guys.